everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Well, today is this is the it's the third Thursday of the month, which means it's time for Vegan Doc Talk with Dr. Scott Harrington. And today he's going to talk about vegan weight loss. I wonder why he's talking about this in December, though. We'll find out. Please welcome him to the show. Isn't this like more of a January topic?
It sure is. It sure is. Of course, I'm going to be talking about that. So strap on your seatbelts. So
Yeah.
let's do it.
Because do you really think realistically that anybody's going to be thinking about going on any kind of a like weight reducing program right now, like just a couple of weeks before Christmas and New Year's? They want to get the last hurrah in, don't they?
That's true. I know. But New Year's is right around the corner. It's December now, but January's coming.
I know it'll be here so soon. What are you going to do for the holidays? Do you do anything special?
We have a secret Santa because my wife has a big family it's like too many people for everybody to buy everybody presents. So we have a big secret Santa, and we all get around, and the names get swapped, and so it's fun. So it's always fun, and we try to guess who's got each person, and it's a great time.
I love that. I always thought Secret Santa was where everybody brings a gift they don't want, and then you steal from each other. Maybe that's called something else.
We have that too. I think that's called a white elephant. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. Last year I bedazzled a plunger. And so that's what you got for your white elephant
That's
present.
really cool. Do you still have it? I'd love to see how to do that.
Well, I hot glued a bunch of, sequins and stuff all over your bedazzled plunger. If you want to have a good time while, at a bad moment.
That is such a great idea. That is a great idea. Bedazzling a plunger. Maybe that'll be your new business.
I like doing crazy creative stuff.
I love it. I love it. So vegan weight loss, is that different than any other kind of weight loss?
Well, it should be the only type of weight loss plan that you're on, because the vegan diet is the most successful in history way to lose weight, and it's the most healthiest way to lose weight. So, hopefully I can give you some evidence on that today. So get people clear that that's definitely the way to go.
Perfect. I misspoke. This is actually the second Thursday of the month. You think I would get my dates straight, but yes. Well, thanks. I can't wait to see what you have to say.
All right. Okay. Well, I'm going to share my screen, and let's see here. Of course, Chef AJ, I want to get your feedback. Can you see it? Is it rolling?
Yes, it's perfect now.
All right. Hey, for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Scott Harrington. I run both a telemedicine and in-person practice, vegan primary care to serve vegans and plant-based folks throughout the country. You can see me online. I am in lots of different states, currently 22 states. And so if you're in one of these states, you can see me for your primary care doctor. I can order labs and referrals and imaging, and I can be your plant-based advocate. And if you're in Florida, it's nice that you can see me in Pinellas Park in person, in the flesh. So I accept insurance, and I accept cash as well. So Aetna, Cigna, TRICARE, and Medicare. So come out and see me, and go to veganprimarycare.com, make an appointment. All right. So today we're talking about vegan weight loss. So I have a story about this because as a plant-based doctor, a lot of people come to me for weight loss, and a lot of people know what to do. I mean, there's lots of vegan influencers, and they've seen the evidence. They know that the plant-based diet is the way to go, and they've tried it, and they may have even had some success, but then they start backsliding. They have problems. It can I'll meet with folks, but sometimes unless they meet with me really regularly, they can have backsliding and have trouble. So I sometimes use the analogy of eating soup with a fork or with a knife or something, where it's just things are kind of slipping through, and weight loss can be that type of problem. So I wanted to talk about it today, and I also wanted to once again highlight something that I'm doing in January. It's my 6-week health transformation. This is a vegan weight loss program. If people are feeling isolated, maybe they don't have other plant-based folks in their family or friends, maybe they've tried to lose weight and they're just falling off the wagon. It can feel like it's me against the world. Patients struggle to do the right thing. So what I've created to kind of solve this problem is a highly engaging 6-week program where you have check-ins with me daily, and I can be your vegan cheerleader for 6 weeks. So we can meet daily, and you'll also get extra education from various health coaches, like a fitness coach, a chef that'll show you food demos, stress management. And then we're going to be doing things like glucose monitoring. So you can be doing food logs plus these glucose monitoring, really keeping you on track, and one-to-one appointments with me as well. So come out. You can get it. It's not paid for by insurance, and you don't have to be in a state that I have. I have 22 states now, but because it's a coaching program and not a medical program, I'm not going to prescribe anything to you. It's all going to be skills, not pills, in a plant-based diet. So you can come out, you can purchase it for someone else, someone in your family, as a gift. But it'd be a great present. Come out, learn about this. But what we're going to go over today on vegan weight loss is all the science behind this. And if you don't get it from me, get it from somebody else. Because what is involved in an optimal weight loss program? Well, as we were talking about, Chef AJ, it's about eating plants, not animals. And this is good not only for you, but also for the sake of the animals and the planet, because you want your diet, that's an ethical diet. You want your diet to be sustainable, something that feels good, makes you feel full and satisfied, bulky. You want it to be whole and not with processed foods. You don't want to be buying shakes and packaged foods to, be trapped into their various packaged food plans. You want to have high fiber, high nutrients, and on and on. There's actually a lot we can talk about it, and I can't cover everything today. But let's get into some science. First off, what's the deal with animal products and weight? Well, just animal products in themselves, when studied and correlated with weight, the more animal products that you eat in your diet, the more you gain weight, the more weight that you have on your body. And it's what they call dose dependent. So the more, the heavier. And it's correlated with abdominal obesity, not the good kind of weight. You want your weight to be in your muscle, not in your abdominal obesity. That's inflammatory, associated with things like heart disease and diabetes. The more animal products you eat, it crowds out the plant foods, which are high in nutrients and have phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals, where animal products tend to be low in that. And another thing that is actually associated with weight, also with inflammation, is TMAO, trimethylamine oxide, which is produced by the liver from trimethylamine that's produced in your gut from digesting the animal products of the choline, which is a lot in eggs, and bad gut bacteria that you get from eating an animal-based diet turn this into trimethylamine, inflammatory and associated with weight. In fact, animal foods are associated with weight. The odds of obesity goes up 18% for every 1% of calories from meat. I mean, that just blows my mind. Holy cow. So stay away from animal products. You're obviously, if you're here with Chef AJ, you know that we don't recommend animal products, but that is why, just to kind of, sometimes people may be asking questions and you can let them know. One study that really showed this dramatically in a dose-dependent fashion is the Adventist Health Study 2. They followed 96,000 people, and they broke them down into categories of people of the various diets, the omnivores, the people who didn't eat red meat, the semi-vegetarian, pescatarian, lacto, and vegan. And they found that the less animal products that they ate, they had better health outcomes, less weight, diabetes, and blood pressure. So in this graph, I wanted to explain this graph because you can see here BMI, and that's basically weight, weight per height. And so as the number goes lower, under BMI 25 is considered normal weight. And so the vegans were the only normal weight group in here, but you can see they are heavier the more animal products that they ate. And then blood pressure and diabetes. A 1 in this graph is how you compare the people. So compared to omnivores, vegans had 25, they were 75% protected from having elevated blood pressure compared. So only 25% had that. And so same, and almost a fifth had diabetes. So highly protected for other things, but weight, importantly, today we're talking about weight. You want to have a diet that's sustainable, and a plant-based diet is sustainable. So this was actually, in my case, I had tried to lose weight on a standard American sort of high protein diet and tried to do portion control way back in 2011, and I failed to lose weight. I felt like I was starving myself with these small portions. It doesn't feel, you don't feel like you can fill yourself up. So, but when you eat a plant-based diet, you can basically eat more food and you eat less calories. So that is sustainable, and that is the magic of calorie density. So here's 200 calories when compare a honeydew melon versus a little slice of cheese. So what's going to fill you up more, right? Well, here are some factors with the calorie density. How much food actually can we fit in our stomach? Well, scientists put tubes down people's stomachs in a balloon and filled it up. And when they filled it up, they asked the participants of the study to tell them when they were 10 out of 10 full, where they just couldn't take it anymore. And they found out that the capacity of their stomachs were about 800 to 1,000 milliliters, which is about 4 cups. About 4 cups. So if you take 4 cups and you look at various foods, and you can see how many calories those 4 cups of one stomach's worth of food would be. And so you have all the way down here at like bell peppers. I didn't put in kale and arugula and these kind of things because of volume. The cups volume was kind of weird, but you can clearly chop up bell peppers and green beans and you can get a good reading here. So these really low calories per full stomach full of food, 4 cups. So 184 calories for strawberries and watermelon. You start to get more calorie dense as you go up, potatoes, beans, but as you see meat, over 1,000 calories per 4 cups, and then all the way up. And then I took this one off the charts because the other chart was making the other chart too small. But you see oil all the way over there in the end, that 7,696 calories for 4 cups. Well, just to drive this home even farther, this is 10 stomachfuls of strawberries for a total of 2,000 calories versus cheese, 1 stomachful of cheese. So that's ridiculous. They did a study to try to see how much actual weight someone would eat. And so they gave people as much food as they wanted to eat, and they would measure the food going in. And in this study, it made it to about 3 pounds per day of food. It was 5.7 with when they added the liquids. And it's true, there's other studies where you see that people were able to fill their stomachs even more with up to 6 or 7 pounds. But in this study, 3 pounds, about 3 pounds of food. So why am I mentioning that? This is straight off of Chef AJ's Secret of Ultimate Weight Loss. Right off the back, there's her calorie density chart, Chef AJ. You recommend eating under 600 calories per pound or less. Because if you fill up your stomach for 3 times per day with 1 pound, 3 times a day is 3 pounds of food, that's only 1,800 calories, even if you're eating the beans, the highest calorie density here on this chart for staying under 600. So if you imagine you fill up your stomach with potatoes and fruits and vegetables, that you're going to be much under this, and it's much easier to lose weight. So you guys have seen this chart before. I think even in the movie Forks Over Knives, they have this chart where it's 500 calories. What does it look like in your stomach? Fruits and vegetables really fill you up. But oil, on the other hand, you're not going to feel full with oil. And so it's going to take up so much more calories, and it's going to be hard to lose weight. So that's calorie density and why you shouldn't eat animal products. But now let's talk briefly about processed foods. Now, we've talked about this. We've talked about how addictive processed foods are and how bad they are for you because they're low in fiber. But there's also sort of this concern that the fact that the nutrients have been stripped out of them, that there might be sort of this aspect of your body still feeling hungry because you're not getting all the nutrients, not being unsatisfied, having empty calories. So for instance, this is straight off of Chronometer, where you have 100 calories of corn versus tortilla chips, corn chips. And you can see that there's much more fat, 4.4 grams of fat in the chips. There's much less fiber, 2.5 grams versus 1.4. Look at the vitamin C. It's been totally stripped out. Magnesium is almost 100% gone. And look, it's 83 times saltier than the corn chips are. So way less nutrients, way more problematic. Just taking a head-to-head look. Did you know that the plant-based diet boosts your metabolism? That you can burn fat even while you're asleep. So longtime vegans have 11% higher resting metabolic rate. And so they just burn more calories just naturally living. Okay, these two slides have some kind of black and white graphs, but this study here, this is another kind of like a metabolism type study. They exercised people after eating breakfast. They had on the top of the graph is the folks who fasted for breakfast, didn't eat breakfast. The middle of the graph are folks who had more of a high fiber breakfast of fruit and all brand cereal. And then the low group there is the folks that had a low fiber breakfast where it was cornflakes and jam and white toast. So the high fiber breakfast, they burned more calories when 3 hours later they exercised. So clearly the folks who fasted had the most calories that were burned from fat. But it is interesting that the high fiber group had more fat oxidation. So just eating fiber helps you when your body has to burn calories, it's going to get more calories from fat. Okay, here is eating a breakfast that is high in fiber. Later on, when the subjects were tested at an all-you-can-eat buffet, they ate 100 less calories if they had a high fiber breakfast. So whether it's keeping them full or they just don't feel as hungry, those are other huge proven tips that the reason why a plant-based diet is so important. So there's actually lots and lots and lots of other tips. You got to hand it to Dr. Greger and his How Not to Diet book. Is close to 5,000 references. And so, I mean, it goes on and on, but some of the highlights are how greens have compounds in them, thylakoids that make you feel full, appetite control. There's concepts of preloading calories, a diet where you preload calories, whether you're sequencing your low calorie foods like Chef AJ, I believe you talked about sequencing where you eat like your veggies first, your non-starchy vegetables first, and then your more calorie dense foods later, or pre-drinking a big thing of water before, making sure you're having low addictive foods like low in salt, oil, and sugar. Timing, a big new information that's out about weight loss is about how our circadian rhythms affect us and how 100 calories in the morning is way less fattening than 100 calories at night. So I say when the lights go out, when it's dark, it's just herbal tea. That's what I recommend, 0 calories. So I could actually go on and on about these various science-based tips regarding weight loss. But I would be remiss unless I mentioned the #1 most successful weight loss study in history was the broad study completed in New Zealand, where they had two groups, and one group was on a plant-based diet, and they were not counting their calories. They were just being put on a plant-based diet and told to do a traffic light system where, and we'll go over that. They recommended avoiding nuts and avocados because they were high in fat and they were trying to lose weight. And they followed them. They followed them directly for 12 weeks. And so at 12 weeks, they had lost 19 pounds, which is dramatic weight loss. Then following them up at 6 months and 12 months, they had lost 27 pounds, and they basically kept it off. So at 12 months, they were at 25 pounds. So that is dramatic improvement. And basically, this broad study has given us a blueprint for how to run the 6-week health transformation. And so I'm going to go over the broad study. I'm going to talk about all the things that were part of the broad study, and so that you can know that this is the blueprint for the 6-week health transformation. So what were some of the factors in this study that helped people lose weight? I call them the change factors. You're making a behavioral change. So change. So the C stands for consistency. Whenever you're trying to make a behavioral change, you want to form a habit, you want to keep it going and keep doing it, and so that you don't get off track. You want to have help. I mean, you starts to feel like, especially in the plant-based diet, if you don't have a lot of people around you, it's nice to have social support. It's nice to have tips and tricks on how to bring your family in and help you and give you some social support and encouragement. Accountability. This is an important part of weight loss, self-monitoring. Having a plan, a goal, and a plan. So this is called the navigation portion. Personalized guidance and education. Education and skills, cooking demos, stuff like this. This is big for confidence, because people who don't feel confident to change generally won't change. So this is very important. Okay, so to briefly go over the change factors. So consistency in the broad study, they did a 12-week plan. My plan is going to be 6 weeks, but they met twice a week, and I will be meeting with the participants every day. So to establish the green routine, that's what I call it, the green routine. In the broad study, they had support. They had encouragement. The participants met together, and they would have meetups and group discussions, and it was a positive environment. They were supporting each other. In our group, we'll have the daily check-ins, and then we also have a forum where people can ask each other questions and support each other. Broad study had an accountability. They did an accountability through a 3-day food recall. 3-day food recall. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how successful this must have been, but because I can barely remember what I did yesterday sometimes with the food intake. But in our plan, we're going to have a daily food log where you just go over what you ate as well. Step-by-step navigation plan. Basically, the broad study used the traffic light system. Now, Dr. McDougall's got a traffic light system, but theirs was slightly more robust in the fact that they, in the orange and red, the red, they had recommended no nuts and nut butters, and avocado and coconut oil, coconut milk. And so in their food log, they basically had people count how many times they had eaten foods that were in the yellow, so orange and the red. So, but in a traffic light system, the low calorie density fruit and vegetables are free. Like you can eat pretty much till you're full with these foods. And so you want to be sparing with salt, oil, or salt and sugar, because it can make you overeat. And some of the high calorie healthy foods like tofu and tempeh. And in this study, they were worried a little bit about caffeine, and definitely about alcohol, because lowering your inhibitions and kind of forgetting that you're on a weight loss program, honestly. Okay, the broad study, what about the guidance? What did they do? Well, this is where you have people that are starting to fall off the bandwagon, and helping them relapse prevention, and help them get back on board. And giving people tips on what to do about difficult situations. So this is like when you're at a restaurant, or if you have a family member that's confronting you about being on a plant-based diet, or what do you do when you're traveling, and these kind of things. Labeling saboteurs. So getting some guidance from experts who've been there and done that, that's very important. So lastly, about the broad study, we'll talk about education to build confidence in your skills. So the cool thing about this blueprint, the broad study had actually gave a topic on every single thing that they educated their patients about. And I'm going to go through that with you. And so we'll go through and know exactly what was studied. But we're talking about teaching the foundations of the plant-based diet, getting cooking demos and practical tips on how to prepare and stay meal prepped, and social tips like we talked about. Okay, so the next 4 slides are the educational classes and the actual cooking demos that were done. So I'm not going to go over each one of these, but you can see that it was pretty robust. Over 12 weeks, these were the topics. So notice, look who was in the educational program. Notice that Dr. Lyle talked about social support. Notice that they gave out the Starch Solution book by Dr. McDougall. Notice they had a Jeff Novick discussion about calorie density and baking substitutions. And they had a Dr. Barnard talk and a Dr. Ornish talk. So really interesting. So those are the classes. These are practical tips that can keep you, and the foundational tips about plant-based diet. And food demos, very important, the food demos, because you want to see yourself actually doing it and seeing how to make it easy, and meal prep tips that can set you off for you don't want to feel overwhelmed, and seeing somebody else do it, it makes it a lot easier for you. So this is not rocket science really, though. I mean, going through learning the oil-free hummus, the frozen banana nice cream, which is a great substitution, talking about acceptable packaged foods, oil-free dips and oil-free like dressings for your salad, vegan baking substitutions. And there were some things in New Zealand they were called like sweet breads is what they called it. So I wasn't sure exactly what that was, but then they talk about, the big pot meals, veggie burgers, and salads in a jar. So kind of like meal prep salads. Okay, so these were the things that were in the broad study. And once again, the broad study is the blueprint for the 6-week health transformation, which I'm going to be running in January, where you can meet with me. We're going to have these fitness experts, cooking demo experts, glucose monitoring. I will be going through those same behavioral change tips with consistency. We'll have people are checking in daily. We'll have the forums for the social support, and people being able to meet with each other and talk. We're going to be doing food logs, not only as a log, but also with a glucose monitor, so you can see how you react to, say, oatmeal versus rolled oats versus steel cut oats versus oat groats. How does that affect your blood sugar? How does stress affect your blood sugar? How do beans and greens, the ultimate blood sugar moderator, how do they affect your blood sugar? So we're going to use a traffic light diet in the same way that the broad study did. We'll have one-to-one visits with me as well. So appointments, coaching appointments, just to kind of help get you back on track if you're having trouble. And then, as we talked about, the food experts. So the experts that we're going to have, we've got 2 experts that have signed up already. We've got Angela Fischetti. She is great. You've seen her on Chef AJ before. She gives great fitness classes. She does yoga, and she helps people over 40 with exercise. She has reversed her osteoporosis, and she's set apart. She's plant-based. So she's very inspirational, very energetic. Also, we've got Vicki Brett Gock. She is just a powerhouse in the plant-based community. She's got a cookbook, the Plant-Based for Life cookbook. She's got lots of plant-based certifications from Cornell University, and she's even got culinary coaching from Harvard Medical School and the Institute of Lifestyle Medicine. So she is packing a power, and she's going to bring a lot of these awesome practical vegan cooking demos to bear on our program. So if you don't get it from me as a vegan doctor, get it from someone else. I really wish you luck in the coming year, January. Get started today. Get help losing weight. Get a doctor who gets you. And anyway, I'm Dr. Scott Harrington, and I'm ready to answer any kind of questions that you have about the vegan diet and vegan weight loss.
All right. Well, they don't always know what the topic is in advance, so they send in questions for you as a doctor, so they're not all on weight loss. I don't know if that's okay or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course.
Thank you. Well, the first question is about the program, and somebody is asking how many people will be in the program.
We're capping it at 10 people. We're capping it at 10. This is the first, this is the maiden voyage. So I want people to feel like they're getting lots of personal time. And so that's really important for me. If we find that we can handle more, then that's what we'll do.
Sounds great. Thank you. So the first question is not on weight loss. It's from Anne. And she said it's about a friend of hers takes blood thinners for a genetic blood clotting disorder and arrhythmias. He was told to avoid green leafy vegetables as the vitamin K content can promote clotting and affect the dose of the medication. I eat a whole food plant-based diet with a lot of leafy greens, and my friend likes to tell me that all the vitamin K I consume can lead to a blood clot. I know he's wrong, but I would like to be able to explain to him why he's wrong.
Well, the vitamin K does affect the metabolism of the blood thinner medicine, and we're talking specifically about Coumadin, warfarin, Coumadin. But the good news is the newer blood thinning medications. For instance, Eliquis is an example of one of the newer medications. They don't have the same sort of competitive situation or metabolic problem with vitamin K. So, but also, I mean, plant-based food and greens are so important for our health that you want to basically stay on a routine diet of these greens. And you want to, if you're on Coumadin, the problem with Coumadin is that you're always having to go and you're always having to monitor your current level of being thinned out, the INR, they call it. So Coumadin is problematic because the lethal dose and is so close to the dose of being not coagulated enough. So it takes a lot of monitoring. And although the medicine itself is cheaper than things like Eliquis and these newer medications, that the monitoring and that kind of thing is so problematic that many patients are opting to get over to these other newer medications. But if you can't get off of warfarin and you still want to eat your vegan diet, eat greens and all you want, is that you want to stay on a steady dose of those greens so that you can get your testing and have them adjust the warfarin dose appropriately. So this is a tragedy, basically. Like this is another thing where the doctors were the idea of like, oh, food doesn't matter, or you can eat whatever you want to just monitor your calories. This is another tragedy, placed upon the plant-based community, and this is the idea of that having to be blood thin and to avoid greens. That's just ridiculous. You want to eat the greens and just tell your doctor and they monitor your dose, basically.
So if I hear you correctly, you want to adjust your medicine to the diet, not the diet to the medicine.
That's great. Oh my gosh, couldn't have put it better myself.
Okay, thank you so much. This is from Bonnie. Please ask Dr. Scott Harrington to talk about, I don't know what this is, Trinant Transform, which claims to turn glucose into fiber and therefore helps lower blood sugar and help with weight loss. It is a weight loss question. Let me see if I can Google it. I don't think, or you can Google it too. I've never heard of it. Trinant. I could send you questions in advance too, if you like.
Trinant Transform.
Trinant Here it is. I found it. Oh, it's a looks like a supplement, $65, reduces glucose spikes from food to help improve metabolism, reduces brain fog, may help regulate weight management, blah 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 blah. So let's see what's in it.
They might be talking about acarbose, which is like which helps control blood sugar. It's a um, it like blocks the breakdown of carbohydrates in the GI tract. And so I am seeing a lot of like, a keto type foods, and they're saying, oh, we've got acarbose in it to block, carb absorb, metabolism. And so what's interesting is that you can get you can get things that block the glucose breakdown and everything through berries. Believe it or not, berries are one of the things that kind of help to slow down. I believe it's amylase's enzymatic breakdown of carbs into sugar. And so you can actually decrease the rate of absorption of things just by eating a healthy dose of berries with your meals.
Yeah. I mean, do you think this has been tested scientifically? It says it transforms your blood glucose. It's some kind of enzyme, they're saying.
Yeah, so it's probably I'm not I don't know for sure, but it's probably acarbose. If I had to guess,
Okay.
inhibits alpha glucosidase, inhibits activity of alpha glucosidase enzymes in the small intestines, so they make them less effective at breaking down carbs into simple sugars. That's straight off of Chat GPT. So, but basically, these are enzyme inhibitors that, but you can get these same things from the plant-based world and not have to pay $60 a month for the for that supplement.
Absolutely. Thank you. Next question is from Vanessa, and she says that her doctor said her B12 is extremely high and not to take any more supplements. I'm not sure what that means. Her second question is her A1C was 5.8 and puts her in the category of pre-diabetic. She's on 2 meds for hypertension, but her numbers aren't going down. Maybe she wants to have a virtual appointment with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I do joke around that, if I'm vegan and I have any medical problems, I get all upset. Like, what the heck? I'm just supposed to be perfect on my health parameters. But I have vegans who still have high blood pressure. I have vegans who still have pre-diabetes. And so if your hemoglobin A1C, the long-term blood sugar test is over 5.7, that gets you a little bit worried that because you're in the pre-diabetic range, your blood sugar is a little bit up. So when I have patients in this with this situation, we talk. They're two different things. They're kind of two different things, but same solution. Basically, for pre-diabetes and weight, it's plant-based diet, low-calorie foods, high fiber foods. For blood pressure, same thing, except also really focus on blood salt and making sure you're having a lot of high nitrate greens, dilate the arteries. And so that's basically one of the things we would go over in a visit. We'd go over that. This is one of the things that makes me feel like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. But for nitrates is the idea of avoiding mouthwash. So just brushing your teeth, but not disrupting the microbiome of your mouth with like Listerine and Scope and that kind of thing. Because there's an enzyme that breaks down those high nitrates from the greens and into nitrite. It gets into your stomach acid, turns into nitric oxide, which is absorbed to help dilate your arteries. And for over 50, where you want to get that stuff from your diet because you're producing less and less of this dilating chemical.
Thank you. Tamara wants to know about some numbers. She's 54, plant-based 4 years. B12 is normal range, 680, hemoglobin normal 13.2, HCT normal 38.3. But her ferritin is always low at 7, normal being 16 to 100. Should she be concerned? Any recommendations to boost that number? She's healthy and not feeling tired or anemic in any way. I actually heard from some of the doctors on the show, like Dr. Rogers, it's better to have lower iron.
I know. And this is actually a very common thing. You know, most of my vegan patients were low on the ferritin. Um, and and so then it becomes, man, is this a problem? And so, yeah, so first I try to figure out, is it problematic? Is the patient experiencing issues about being iron deficient? And so if they, you know, one of the things people complain about is like hair loss or hair thinning, and one of the only things that's a thyroid, and iron is like some of the only things that are kind of really clear and have a good test for. So if there's complaints about hair loss, then that's something that we could try to get up and monitor it. I the problem with iron is toxic, and iron is one of the supplements that has been associated with poisoning deaths of children. And so it's notorious, you know, it's toxic to the body and it causes upset stomach and it causes constipation. And so iron is not for the weak at heart when you're taking iron supplements. I recommend these plant-based ones, the like Floradix or Flora Vital brand. They're usually well tolerated. There's a Mega Food Blood Builder is another brand that has some iron supplements. Interesting, because the toxic aspect of iron, is good to take it every other day. You get about the same absorption by taking it every other day because the body puts up less of a sort of absorption blockade against it. So it's now gold standard to do dosing every other day. So you know, if you're that low, that is pretty low ferritin, and if you are having fatigue or vague symptoms, it might be reasonable to do some supplementation and retest. It can take a long time. It could take, you know, 8 to 12 weeks to see a dramatic change. And so I think it's reasonable. Now, some people will have things called like restless leg syndrome, where you have iron deficiency at night, where your legs kind of move around and you can't get comfortable and you feel kind of like irritated or itchy. And so this can be associated with low ferritin. And so once again, I'm looking for reasons why that they may need to get it up a little higher. But most people have no problems at over 20. But the restless leg experts recommend ferritin of 70, but I think that's way too high. Many of my patients aren't at that high of ferritin.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Okay, this is Victoria. She said, how are omega-3s checked? I asked my doctor to check it in my next blood workup and told there wasn't a specific test for omega-3s. The lipid profile would be evaluated. Diets high in omega-3s can increase HDL and decrease LDL. Would you explain? It's called a fatty acid profile, and it's just a person could just walk into Quest by themselves or LabCorp and get it. It doesn't even need a doctor's order.
Yeah, and there's a couple of different tests. The one that I'm most familiar with is the omega-3 index, and that's through Quest or Quest affiliated labs. And so that's the one I recommend there. And the reason why I recommend it is it's kind of these nutritional tests that are based on the membrane of the cell are kind of nice because it's a 90-day average, 90 to 120-day average. And so, yeah, so I really like the omega-3 index. And the LabCorp version or other versions that have serum omega-3, you know, that could kind of fluctuate a little bit more, or much more. And so make sure you are comparing apples to apples and orange to oranges, so that if you are, omega-3 test is kind of like a supplement test, let's be honest, like, because you get the test and then, you know, a lot of times you'll see that, oh my gosh, it's low. What do I do? Well, you supplement and then you retest to see if you're making a change in the omega-3s. And so, yeah, it depends on which lab you're using. The doctor, when they go to order, if whether you're getting the serum-based omega-3 or you're getting the membrane, the cell membrane-based omega-3 index, and that's the one I recommend.
Nice. Well, thank you. This question is from Judy. It is Do you think that elevated protein in the urine, albumin and creatinine, are concerning in the absence of other clinical symptoms such as diabetes or kidney disease? And is there any correlation with weight loss in a vegan SOS-free diet?
Well, protein in the urine, also known as proteinuria, is problematic. Your body should not, your filter of your kidneys should not be letting protein out, basically. And so there is a test for urinary protein. The standard urine test, urinalysis, a urine dipstick can test, and they'll say +1 or +2 or +3 proteinuria. And but the problem is, if it gets as high as +1, that is pretty significant proteinuria. Normally, we're monitoring patients who are diabetic to as their kidneys have issues over time, and we monitor them at least once a year with something called a microalbumin test, which is even more sensitive than the urine dipsticks. And so, if you're diabetic, you should be getting these tests. Now, if you're not diabetic and they don't know what's going on, why you're having protein in the urine, this is problematic. And a little bit of protein every night. Sometimes people do like intense exercise, or they'll do something that vibrates their body a lot, or they'll, be in some roller coaster or something, and then they get labs like the next day and they can have some transient proteinuria. But you want to follow that up. You want to make sure that it's not persistent, because if it's persistent, then there's something wrong with your kidney filter, and you should maybe it's a harbinger of something to happen in the future. You want to make sure you don't have kidney disease or this kind of thing. So yeah, transient proteinuria that goes away is much less concerning, but persistent proteinuria is something you want to work up. If the doctors work it up and they never figure it out and they rule out a lot of bad things, then you can kind of live with proteinuria, mild proteinuria, but you want to see if it's potentially reversible.
Thank you. Melissa says, can you talk about hormones and headaches? I'm a 55-year-old female still getting regular periods, but suffer from terrible headaches, sometimes migraines, about 5 to 6 times per month. I've been eating whole food plant-based over 4 years. Is there a benefit to having hormone levels checked, and could that be a cause of the headaches?
I don't really associate these things closely. I mean, I know that people during kind of premenstrual syndrome, people talk about have it as prostaglandins rise in the system. You can have more headaches, and so you can have hormonally mediated headaches. But if these are pretty standard and they're kind of coming throughout the month, I don't think that it's associated necessarily with like a premenopause or a menopause coming on. Honestly, I would start looking for other reasons why people are having headaches. If people are having chronic headaches, the number one thing that I always look for, well, after we rule out like blood pressure problems, is I look into people's sleep. So one thing that's very common in this country is sleep apnea, and people snoring and then not getting good sleep and holding their breath all night, basically. So if so, I would start asking people around you, like, hey, do I snore at night, or do you wake up in the morning with a sore throat? Do you feel like you're not rested? Because certainly, the brain basically cleans out, it does this housekeeping at night, and people have dramatic headaches if that is a problem. Now, this question about hormones and stuff, I mean, I don't routinely recommend people who are postmenopausal go on to hormone replacement therapy. I don't recommend that as a routine recommendation. So I don't recommend following hormone testing in general. I mean, there may be reasons why people want to know. And if people want to know, I'm willing to test. But in terms of postmenopausal hormone therapy, my sort of go-tos recommend is vaginal estrogen, low-dose vaginal estrogen, to avoid vaginal atrophy and the UTIs that can accompany that. that's kind of the way I approach it. But each patient is individual, and we work with them with their individual situation.
Yeah. I wonder if she'd ever consider a water fast, because there was a patient there that had like a migraine for 7 years, and the water fast is what helped her.
Totally reasonable option. I mean, worth a try. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Okay, we got another question here. We get so many for you, Dr. Harrington. This is from Marcia. I do not have a thyroid for 35 years and I take Armor Thyroid. I have GERD. What is the best diet for hypothyroidism?
Well, if you've been taking your thyroid for 35 years, well, it depends on if you have a thyroidectomy. If you have no thyroid at all, then you have to take the thyroid medication, no matter what your diet is, I guess you could say. This kind of brings up the idea of people, thyroid is a part of kind of blood test screening that people do. And you'll oftentimes, if a patient is complaining of fatigue or some other kind of vague concern, hair loss, like we mentioned before, like thyroid is tested. And if your thyroid is a little off, the doctor will come to you and say, I've got a medicine for you. I've got something that will help you lose weight and will make you feel less fatigued and make you have less brain fog. And they kind of sell the thyroid hormone as kind of a panacea. And it is to people who have like really low thyroids. But in this sort of gray area where you have a mild abnormality with the thyroid, people get started on this thyroid medication a lot. So 40% of people are basically inappropriately started on thyroid medicine. And it's a lifelong treatment, because when do you decide to come off your thyroid medicine and test the waters? Coming off the thyroid medicine could really throw you into a tailspin if your thyroid is burnt out and not producing thyroid. So if patients decide that they want to come off thyroid medications, we want to follow their thyroid closely and make sure they don't just go without thyroid medicine. You don't want to be, if you really need thyroid, you don't want to be on a desert island without your thyroid medicine. It can be a deadly situation, but it takes a long time for the problems to manifest. So I know this is a long story, but the patient mentions like, what's the best diet for my thyroid? So the best diet for all conditions basically is a plant-based diet, but what you're talking about might be around iodine. So in a similar way, iron is the element that's in hemoglobin molecule that carries your oxygen in the blood. And so in the thyroid hormone, iodine is the element that's inside the thyroid hormone. And so it's important to make sure you're getting sources of iodine. You need about 150 micrograms per day. And you can get that through sea vegetables like nori and vegan sushi, and wakame and like the miso soup type stuff, and the seaweed salads. I recommend it about twice a week to consume some of these sea vegetables. But if you are taking thyroid hormone, you're already getting preformed thyroid hormone that contains iodine in it, and it becomes much less of sort of a dietary concern for you. And so the best diet overall is always a plant-based, low-fat, plant-based diet, is to make you feel better for all sorts of other reasons. But if you're taking thyroid for an injured thyroid that doesn't produce thyroid hormone, then you're covered basically.
Right. Does the one that person is taking, that's from an animal product? So if
That
somebody
is
was
from an animal
vegan,
product.
I
So
mean, do they have to take that one? Is there a synthetic one
No.
for people that are more concerned about animals could take?
Yes, absolutely. There's levothyroxine, which is not produced from animals, and leothreonine, which is T3. But many, endocrinologists recommend just taking the good old levothyroxine, which is kind of like which a brand name Synthroid, or generic levothyroxine, which is, you don't have to take the Armor Thyroid. So people take this.
Why is that even recommended then? I mean, why would people want to take one from an animal? That sounds creepy and gross.
I know it sounds gross and it sounds nasty. And the other thing is that there, in the past, have been wide changes with supply. And so people who are taking the natural thyroid hormone, oftentimes, are having to switch brands like Armor Thyroid, Nature Thyroid, desiccated thyroid because of supply issues. And so that's why I tend to recommend, not only for the animal purposes, but just the supply and the where you have the same type of product, well-controlled product, is more of a synthetic product, honestly. The levothyroxine.
Yep. Thank you. This is from Amy. Her daughter started birth control and she's hoping to have an IUD, but her question is, for the 4.5 months she was on birth control pills, could she see any damage to her pituitary gland or other parts of her reproductive system from extra estrogen and progesterone from the pill? And if so, are there suggestions on how to detox from that?
Well, the good news is that no, I don't think you have to worry about that as a problem per se, because birth control pills do raise the estrogen, raise kind of the average estrogen over the whole monthly cycle. So, and in that way, having a steady estrogen dose, it fools the pituitary gland, the brain, into thinking that you are basically pregnant, and you're not going to have an escalation of estrogen that you get in the middle of the cycle. This escalation of estrogen triggers the luteinizing hormone, the LH surge, which pops out an egg. So by having this steady estrogen, you don't ever get the LH surge. But what happens after that LH surge? Well, the corpus luteum, what's left over of where the egg came out of the ovary, continues to produce estrogen and progesterone at a high dose, because they're trying to get the uterus, the baby home, ready to implant an egg. So at the last half of the monthly cycle, your estrogen and progesterone is a lot higher than in the first part. So believe it or not, taking birth control pills in the beginning half is higher than what it would be, but in the end half of the week of the month, it's lower. And so you don't have to worry that you have been sort of subjected to a tremendous dose of estrogen or progesterone, and you don't have to necessarily worry about detoxification in this scenario. So, birth control pills are very safe and are a great option for controlling your fertility and having that freedom.
Thanks. This is funny because we always tell people in our newsletter, which if you sign up at chefaj.com, you get priority on your questions, and we tell you who's going to be on. And we say, if you want to be anonymous, let us know in the first line. And it says, please keep this unanimous. So I'm going to keep this one unanimous.
Nice.
And it's about, it says, Dr. Harrington, what can I do about having low arachidonic acid? My level's at 2.1, while my AA over EPA ratio is high at 0.3. Is this something to worry about? I've been whole food plant-based for 4 years.
I'm a little confused. Arachidonic acid is problematic in terms of that is part of the prostaglandin pathway of inflammation. And so you don't want to have elevated arachidonic acid by any means. But this is what I believe to be an omega-3 type question. And so we can kind of talk about sort of this omega-3, omega-6 ratio. Basically you can stay away from arachidonic acid by staying away from animal products, which are much higher than this arachidonic acid from the diet. But in terms of you're wanting to have a good omega-3, omega-6 ratio, omega-6 always dominates because it's just more in more foods. But in evolutionary times, I guess, hunter-gatherer times or something, it was thought that our omega-3 ratios were a little bit more favorable than they are compared to a modern diet. And so you want to make sure that you're getting ground flax and chia and hemp, and eating, maybe a small amount of walnuts. If you're looking to try to get more omega-3s from a plant-based world, it's also in greens. And if you can keep your vegetable oils and seed oils down, which contain a lot of omega-6s, maybe you can get that ratio more normalized on the plant-based diet. So avoid animal products and avoid omega-6s to help normalize your omega-3, omega-6 ratio.
Right. Thanks. If you have time, we'll just take a quick one from the chat. Guys, we always do the pre-submitted ones first, so that's the best way to get your question asked. But
Right.
there was a question from Florence. Do antidepressants cause restless leg syndrome? I actually Googled it, and there was one called I can't remember, Remeron that said it could. I just Googled it.
Well, I mean, as we talked about, iron deficiency is a big one. And yeah, like I'm pulling this up just because, I mean, there are serotonin syndromes where, you're taking serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so it makes the serotonin go up. But I'm not sure about that association. It says certain ones may be associated with increased risk of restless leg syndrome. I believe that they're dopamine related. Syndrome, dopamine deficiency. Well, I mean, I believe that the treatments have relationship with dopamine, but the main thing that you want to deal with is you want to check your iron to make sure there's not a reversible cause for the restless leg syndrome. And so that's what I would get checked first. There are medications that treat restless leg syndrome. They're related to dopamine and not necessarily related to the SSRIs, the serotonin medications.
Thank you. One of the viewers, since we were talking about it, what are the side effects of omega-3 deficiency? Dr. McDougall says it's never happened. Like you can't, he's done a lot of talks on this channel about you can't be too low.
I know. And I mean, I'm so impressed with Dr. McDougall because, he's kind of said the same things for 40 years and he's always right. So, I mean, this is a hot debate, about the omega-3s. And there are, I guess, what's more problematic is if you're too high in omega-3s, like what if some of the supplement testing found, and that's a higher rate of atrial fibrillation. So like in one placebo-controlled trial, the placebo had a rate of 2% of the patients had started to get atrial fibrillation in the time period that was tested. And then on the omega-3 leg or arm, they had 3%. So a slight increased risk for atrial fibrillation. High dose omega-3s put you a little bit risk for bleeding complications, like if you're in a trauma and you hit your head and you could have bleeding inside your head, those bleeding kind of complications. But having low omega-3s in observational studies are associated with things like premature delivery. And you hear stories of having putting people in higher cardiac risk category. That's sort of one of the most standard concerns about omega-3. There's also a concern about brain shrinkage in terms of people that are low in omega-3s having more of this age-related brain shrinkage. However, the studies are kind of mixed and low powered. And so the debate rages. Some doctors recommend a low dose omega-3, 250 milligrams of omega-3. However, then there's also been debates that that's not a high enough dose to actually do anything or make a difference. And so it is reasonable if you're interested in knowing omega-3 to do a testing with omega-3 index and treat to get over 5%. This is what Dr. Furman recommends, and Dr. McDougall doesn't agree, and the debate rages.
Yep. But you can eat more greens unless you're on that medicine at the beginning that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, you have a very happy holiday season. I hope you do something fun.
All right. Yes, I will. And you too, Chef AJ. And thanks once again for having me on. I feel super lucky always to be here. And
it's always fun. You always have an interesting topic. So thank you.
All right. Well, you take care.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow for 2 shows. At 9 a.m., we have our regular The Doctor is In. It's a Q&A with Dr. Ron Weiss. But at 11 o'clock, we have Dr. John Scharfenberg, who will be celebrating his 100th birthday. And he's also going to be talking about weight loss. So we have to see what a 100-year-old thinks about weight loss, Dr. Harrington.
My God, that's great. I'm so happy. That's awesome.
Yeah, we had a birthday party for him because he's out of town now, but we had it, and Dr. Goldhammer came, and Dr. Lyle and Dr. Neil Nedley, all the plant-based doctors that live here. And guys, he drives a red sports car at night. He's 100 years old.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
we all should be as healthy as him. So thank you so much again, Dr. Harrington. I love hearing from you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. Hope to see you tomorrow.